with that, I want to hand controls over to Amy Neeser and to Erin Foster. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, Justin. I'm just going to share my screen. And Erin's going to get us started this morning.
Yes, I'm going to kick us off. So thanks, Amy. That looks great. So yes, thanks for having us. I'm very excited to be here. I think this is actually, I believe I've come to a researcher facing call a long time ago. So I'm happy to be back. And it's really great to see all of you. So again, yes, Amy and I are going to, I think, set the stage a bit, talk about a little bit about research data management, maybe broadly, and then specifically focusing on, at UC Berkeley, some of the ways in which we're engaging with it and how we support our research communities. So I guess we can get started though with some introductions. So I am Erin Foster. I am the service lead for the RDM program here at UC Berkeley. I come from a library background and I've been here since June of 2020. And then I work very closely with Amy.
And hey, everybody, I'm Amy. I'm the consulting and outreach lead in research IT. I use she and they pronouns, and my background is also as a librarian, and that's how I got into the research data management space.
Yeah, so we'd like to kick it off right away with some interactivity. So we do have a Menti poll. And so if you're not familiar, if you could go to that URL, www.menti.com, and then enter that use code. And there's a question there to get a sense from the audience and all of y'all, where you kind of fall. Are you more sort of data side, compute side, both, which I imagine many of us probably are. And we can get a sense of, who we're sort of speaking to. Or other, there's always that option. Okay, something else. Yeah, that's right. That's what we call it. Something else. Okay, awesome. Ooh, yeah. Getting a mix. Perfect. Oh, thanks, Gladys. Yeah, that's the code for the.
Thanks. Yeah, the code's also at the top of the screen here if you need that.
Awesome.
Looks like lots of both.
Lots of both. Something else. If you would like to put in the chat what your something else is, that would be awesome.
Looks like we've got a
Great.
handful of mostly data facing folks. Nice.
All right.
Cool.
Very cool. Okay, so we've got a mix as always. And so I really appreciate it. Oh, nice. We got professor, cybersecurity. I'm seeing some of the things in the chat. Policy facing, awesome. Privacy analyst. Okay, really cool. So yeah. And then, yeah, yes, using the same sort of code, refreshing the screen. Do you assist in RDM at your home institution? So we kind of assume what the answer will be here, but nice. Perfect. Librarian of all trades. I'm seeing that in the chat. I love it.
Wow, so many
Excellent.
yeses.
Well, then that should be a great discussion later because we'll have a lot of perspectives on how that looks like at the different institutions. And for those of y'all that are no, or you're not sure, maybe this, maybe some of the presentation we have today and then also the discussion can help either confirm yes or no, or give ideas. So storage architect, nice. Great, thanks, Amy. So yeah, so at a broad level, just again, to kind of sort of set the stage, we wanted to start off with why does research data management continue to be important? And, I'm probably obviously preaching to the crowd a bit on this, but I do want to focus this less maybe on the organizational benefits of RDM or the sort of reproducibility benefits, and really focus more kind of as the abstract talked about on how there's this kind of increasing complexity and change around how the research communities that we support are expected to engage with things like data security, data management practices, data sharing. There's sort of an increase in the expectation and responsibility that comes, at least as a, someone who consults actively with the researchers that I engage with. And so we kind of, at least at Berkeley, we often have kind of talked about it as these three sort of bubbles. And in many ways, it's sort of, there's a need for almost increased like literacy around how the tools and services that we offer on campus, for example, either complement or don't requirements and expectations around, institutional policy, funder policy, research data governance practices, and how, the tools and services, need to map on, or vice versa, to the policy and governance, and how we can actually, communicate that in our consulting and to our research communities about how that happens. And so my supervisor kind of often talks about RDM quite broadly in the sense of being able to facilitate these conversations on our campus and being able to provide guidance on how things sort of interplay and depend on each other. So we can bring the policy perspective and talk about, oh, you want to use this particular storage tool. Well, that may or may not work depending on the data that you're working with. And so really that kind of, again, engaging with those complexities and the different requirements that are, coming forward or keep cropping up. And so on the next slide, one of the ways we do attempt to meet this is to offer services across the life cycle of research, and make sure that we're assisting with these different needs in order to touch on the kind of quote unquote before, during, and after research processes. So being able to speak in the beginning, how are people going to handle their data? So whether that's being involved in talking about setting up data management plans. We also have a great relationship with our office on campus that signs data use agreements. So being able to come in at the beginning, before the data is acquired from a third party provider, for example, and speak to like, yes, we can fulfill these security requirements. Yes, we can, help a researcher get set up in a way to receive this data. The middle part, so the part of, where you're going to store the data during kind of the active phase. How are you going to put together a workflow that works for like the classification of the data that you're working with? How are you going to work with outside collaborators? So really, what support is needed for the active work. And then the quote unquote kind of downstream part, which is how are you going to share that data, whether it's sort of a repository solution, or how are you going to kind of archive, preserve? So, there's a lot of discussion that we increasingly get into around, what are cold storage options for data that people are working with? So how, if they're not going to be touching that data a lot, but need to have it around for whatever purpose, how do we, kind of separate that from maybe the quote unquote active data storage that they're working with? So, it's easy to say, this is our ethos. We try to support all these parts. And, I will say from my role, I'm very active kind of in that middle phase now in my role, particularly because Amy will kind of get into this, but my role quite literally bridges the library and research IT. So, my part of my role is the goal is to try and facilitate that sort of handoff between these different phases. But we work really closely with partners on campus to really get at the kind of before and after parts as well. And so on the next slide, we'd be totally remiss to not shout out the fact that our support and RDM in general on campus is made possible because we have all these partners and because we are able to work with these different units. So, the library and research computing on, at least at Berkeley, are very closely aligned through the program that I lead. But we've also, increasingly, and have always kind of worked with Central IT. The Information Security Office is a partner we work with a lot. Privacy Officer, Vice Chancellor of Research, we're very lucky in that we have existing relationships and have really tried to grow relationships with different groups on campus to ensure that we can kind of, again, facilitate that like life cycle of support for research data. And I will say, one of the things before, so that we haven't, sorry, before we move on to the next poll, most of these relationships, an area that we've really focused on and they've become really important is specifically around data security. And I won't, I could speak more to that if there's interest, but that's an area that of course is of really strong interest on campus and increasing need for support. And so, yes, the next poll, the last poll, we'd love to hear from you. So this is kind of on the partner side. Oh, for menti.com again, we have the code there. If you could list who you work with and partner with on campus. There we go. Or who,
There we
yeah,
are.
key
Sorry about
players
that.
in RDM at your institution. I believe this is sort of a free text field word cloud situation. So we'd love to see, and feel free to, if it's the same, kind of the same people that we've listed, feel free to enter those again. CISO, yeah.
I see central RDM group. I would be interested in where they sit in your institution. I'm going to put that in chat or submit another answer.
Nice. Research cores. Yeah, no, this is great. The library, I love it. Central research computing in the library, central to it all.
I see a few acronyms I don't know. Gosh, this is changing quickly. Oh, I see IRB. Good point. Yes, we also work really closely with the IRB office.
Yeah, and that's been a great partnership now, especially being able to get early on in what are people saying they want to do with their, whether they want to, how do they want to work with their research data, getting early to it rather than after the fact.
I see a VP of Research Innovation. That sounds awesome.
Great.
Research compliance. Wow, look at all of these, Erin. This is a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. This is great. No, it's perfect. So, there are, I think, many options depending on the institution you're at, or, I know in some cases for smaller institutions, it might feel like not as much, right? And so hopefully some of these also can give some inspiration if needed. All right.
Agreed.
Looks like it's, I was going to say, looks like it's slowing down, but it doesn't look like it.
I see somebody said no one. So kind of like what you were
Oh.
saying, Erin, I hope maybe this gives you some ideas of some folks on campus that you could possibly reach out to and get this started. I know at Berkeley, when we started the research data management program, it was before my time, but it was really just a few folks in research computing like, we should do something in this space. Let's probably go talk to the library. And that's how it all started. So
yeah,
cool.
Exactly.
All right.
Great. So yeah, so I'm going to pass it off to Amy, who's going to, I think, talk a little bit more about RDM specifically at Berkeley. So go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, thanks, Erin. So thanks for that really kind of big overview. We thought now we could maybe use UC Berkeley as a case study to dive into how this is working in practice. So this is our summary slide of our program, and we really provide data and computing technologies, consulting, and community. Those are those three bubbles that Erin had showed for the UC Berkeley campus to advance research. That's really our mission, is advancing research. And we used to have separate data and computing programs, and we brought them together because we realized that they are really, different sides of the same coin. And a lot of times people would come in and have questions about our supercomputing cluster or our virtual machines. And of course, they're running data on these tools and these services. And so there was a lot of hidden and embedded research data management questions that came along with those computing questions. So we thought, okay, let's bring these teams together and really give researchers a holistic view of their data and their computing rather than kind of bumping them around from one program to the other. And so here's our continuum of computing and data management. And really in the middle of this is our consultants. And so our consultants are really the ones, they're the ones that interface with the researchers. And we've brought them together in a number of ways. So we have a shared meeting twice a month. We do cross trainings of each other. We sometimes partner together and offer external facing trainings to our researchers. An example of that is that we participate in the Love Data Week events. And Erin had the really great idea, I believe it was, of offering a intro to high performance and remote computing workshop. So we offer, definitely we've been offering for many years, how to get started on our supercomputing cluster, but it was really taking a step back and looking at, when do you use high performance computing and when do you use remote computing? And so we had a lot of our undergraduates and grad students work on that, and it was a really great coming together of the data and the computing sides. So our team is quite diverse, which is part of our success. So we have research IT staff, we have librarians, we have an adjunct professor, graduate students, undergraduate interns, and then also partners from the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. And so there's a lot of different people with a lot of different backgrounds that make up this data and compute consulting team. And yeah, that's how we're able to reach so many folks on campus and different types of folks. So in addition to the shared meetings, we have a shared consulting handbook, which we have linked here, and we can drop in the chat if that's interest to anyone. We staff office hours together. So if somebody, again, comes in with a computing question, we can, ask like, is your data sensitive? Where are you storing your data? Do you need help with that? And really, again, get that kind of one-stop shop. And we keep shared metrics as well, which has been really interesting because it paints a much bigger picture of what the two teams can do together now that they're brought together. So to give you an idea of what types of things we consult about and give trainings about, these are our service areas. And thanks to Erin for revamping these. So on the data side, as Erin mentioned, we do a lot with data classification and security. I think that's actually our most popular area that we consult in. Also data collection, data management, sharing, data storage and backup, and data transfer. So again, really that active phase of the research data lifecycle that Erin was talking about. On the computing side, many of these topics I think will be familiar to you. So we do high performance computing, cloud computing, virtual machines, Exceed, those types of topics, of course. And then we also have what the library really brings to the table here, because that partnership is so important with the library. And again, they're very good at that beginning and end part of the research data lifecycle. So the data discovery, acquiring data, data literacy, and then at the end of the life cycle, the publication and reuse and preservation that Erin was mentioning. So I think what's really key here is that there's no singular entity on campus that can do it all, right? The whole research data lifecycle. And so it's been important for the two organizations, the research computing and the library, to come together and beyond, all those partners that Erin showed on that slide. So I want to leave you with one concrete example of how we're working together. And that is, we are doing a lot of targeted outreach, which has been quite successful. So we used to do outreach of the kind of like, come one, come all, come to our research data management workshop, or setting up a table. And we just weren't getting very good uptake on that type of really general outreach. So we've decided to focus on a particular area of campus every year and do really focused and targeted outreach to that area. So we've focused on new faculty in the area that we've picked, and we've sent out individual emails to them, not just the like, dear professor, like we would actually find out what they're researching, target them, and then we saying that we have data and computing resources and requesting a brief meeting. And for those that are interested and answer us, we have folks from the data side and the computing side come together, meet with these researchers, do a really in-depth individualized consultation. We do a lot of work in advance to see what type of work they're doing. Have they published in our repository first, so that we can come to them with this very, very targeted outreach plan. This has been successful. We first did this in the physical sciences and engineering. Then last year we did the School of Public Health, and right now we're doing outreach to the social sciences. And having both sides, again, that data and the computing is really key. We've found that librarians already have very deep relationships with a lot of the faculty members. And so if the email comes from the librarian, we've found that we get a lot better uptake rather than it coming from IT people, or maybe like a general account for a department. So The librarians have been really key in kind of getting us in there, talking with the researchers. And of course, they bring the disciplinary expertise as well. And then we have computing folks ready to answer questions of, oh, it sounds like you could probably use some high performance computing. So again, bringing these two together in outreach has been quite successful. So with that, I think we would like to turn this over and chat more with you. Oops.
Thank you, Amy. That was a great overview. At MSU, we have, we're discussing, the NIH has its new research data management structures that it's putting through on the NIH grants. And so we're starting some working groups around that and how to solve those issues. And sounds like your team is well on the way to helping support that space. I was hoping for this point in the conversation for the last bit that we would just go ahead and we would break out into breakout rooms, and so that people could talk in groups of like 10 to 15 and introduce ourselves. Each one of these rooms is going to have, the goal would be to have one of our steering committee members. If you get into the call notes, you will see the questions that we want to talk about. This is going to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself. And that's, I think, the best way that we're going to get some really good information. And you should be able to see on the screen right now is kind of the breakout rooms and the questions that we were hoping to get people to discuss. And the goal would be to ask people to not, if there is not a steering committee member there, I'm going to just randomize it so that we drop in quicker. And we're going to need a note taker, and you're going to need someone to help talk through these questions after you introduce yourselves, okay? And so that would give us about 20 minutes until the end of the call, 25 minutes left, and then we'll come back, okay? So, Bob, you have any other thoughts on how we could go about this? I think I'm just going to...
Yeah, I think you've got it. I would say person with the lowest letter last name could actually sort of help facilitate the introductions, or you guys can do it organically, and just pick someone to take notes. And if possible, if someone would like to possibly speak out or report back, we're going to just ask a couple of questions at the end.
By low letter, you mean
like
late in the alphabet or early in the alphabet?
Early in the alphabet, A through whatever, whoever has.
So Aardvark is the note taker.
Yes, exactly.
Well, thank you, Erin and Amy, and hopefully, so if I can get steering committee members to kind of just grab hold of a room and jump around, but I'm going to go ahead and break this out into 7 rooms. And so there'll be roughly about 10 people that get a chance to meet each other. And here it goes. I'm hitting the create button. And in the Google Doc are the questions in the breakout rooms for notes. I'm going to hit open all rooms.
I'm going to pause the recording, okay?
Thank you. Okay.
So, well, we're going to go ahead and close the call. We're going to do a report out, but I think it'd be great. The steering committee can actually take these notes back, and it'd be great for us to sort of summarize this. I think it'd be a great thing for us to have as a resource and share out. So do encourage you to actually continue to add your comments to your breakout room. This would be incredibly valuable. And the steering committee will also look over this to see if there might be some easy wins for an upcoming call. So with that, I want to thank our speakers today from UC Berkeley Research IT, Erin Foster, who's the Research Data Management Program Service Lead, and Amy Neeser, formerly of the Researcher-Facing Steering Committee. Glad to have you back, Consulting and Outreach Lead. I also want to acknowledge all the members of the Researcher-Facing Steering Committee, Gladys, Bautista, Carrie Brown, Katya Bulikova, Martin Kuma, Christiana Koch, Jana Nugent, who normally closes the call, so I'm channeling Jana today, Annalie Rugg, our co-coordinator, Justin Booth, and on my way out as co-coordinator, we'll have new co-coordinator soon, Bob Freeman. We wish you a great day, and thank you for attending the call today. Take care.